Hi guys, this video is about high hamstring tendinopathy and what training errors can cause this condition in runners. I'm also going to touch on what warning signals is telling you to reevaluate your training schedule, and then lastly how you can start from the beginning and actually plan your training better so that you don't run into trouble with this. My name is Marika. I'm one of the physios from sportsinjuryphysio.com, where you can get online physiotherapy assessment as well as treatment of your injuries. So have a look in the description of this video for a link to the website. Okay, so to understand why the training errors causes trouble, or why they are errors for this condition, it's good to just recap why you get a high hamstring tendinopathy. It's essentially an overuse injury of the high hamstring tendon. And for those of you who have not come across it, it's that hamstring tendon attaches right to the sit bone, and whenever you flex your leg, you get a compression force of the tendon on the bone, which is absolutely normal, but that is the force that they think if you overdo that force, that can cause the trouble. So you get there's a force that pulls on the hamstring, and there's a force that compresses it against that sit bone. So positions in which it would compress more is when you run with large strides, when you're running fast, so you're giving big strides for that and you're forcefully contracting to go faster, or when you're running up hills because you're flexing your hip much more and you're pushing through that leg. Now, a second point that's important to understand with regards to training errors is the supercompensation cycle, which basically is how your body reacts to exercise. That baseline is how strong your tissue is before you start your training session. So how much force it can handle, how long it's happy for you to run with, how forcefully to contract it with. And we'll think about it in terms of your hamstring tendon for this video. So when you start exercising, it's at baseline strength. As it fatigues, it starts getting weaker and it gets a bit of micro trauma and stuff, which is normal because that's what happens with exercise. That's the red line. Then at the bottom of that curve is when you stop your exercise session, and then it starts to recover. That's the orange or the yellow curve. Now during that phase, it's replacing the cells that got damaged, it's rebuilding them stronger, it's also making the other ones stronger because it's now realized that, oh no, you want it to be stronger, you want to be able to do more. And you'll see that it reaches the baseline strength, and then it continues to strengthen that tendon into the green. So if you train again when it's in that green phase, you'll be able to train more, it'll be totally recovered, and it will be a happy tendon. If, however, you train again in that yellow phase before it's fully recovered, your baseline is now actually lower than what it was initially, and your curve will stop lower down. If you continue that often, you'll have a downward spiral of that tissue actually becoming weaker rather than stronger. And that's what happens with overuse injuries like tendinopathies, and especially the high hamstring tendinopathy as well. Now, this video is specifically about runners. So you can get high hamstring tendinopathy through overstretching and just sitting on really hard surfaces and stuff as well. But the vast majority of runners that I treat are usually guys who like longer distance running, so 21Ks, ultra distance, marathon distance, or a lot of fast running. So they're doing track sessions and things like that. Often also quite hilly off-road races. And the reason that tends to cause more trouble is because they're all things that will really work the high hamstring tendon quite hard. And essentially, when we look at the year's worth of training before they got injured, you'll often see that they were running really strong, they had really good training sessions, they had really good races, and they had quite a few races and long hard sessions in that 1 year. And that's where the problem comes in, that they have very likely worked that tendon to the max and just not given it enough time to recover and climb out of that yellow phase into the green phase. I found often people, when they think about recovery, they tend to think of it as day to day. So I'll train today, I'll rest tomorrow. Or they realize that they've got to recover a bit after a race. but they don't often think of week-on-week recovery. So when we look at professional athletes who does training as their job, they'll always periodize their training throughout the year. So they'll have a period where they do a high volume of running, but lower intensity. And then as the intensity increases as they approach their A race, they will drop the volume of running so that the body can actually recover enough as well. And then after the A race, they'll allow some recovery period, and then they'll build again. Some of them will only have one A race in a year, versus others may have 2 or 3 depending on your sport. But it will always do that type of thing throughout the year, that it's not always just push, because then they break down. And often with high level recreational athletes, especially ones that's not been running for that long, as soon as you see that I'm actually quite a decent runner and I'm seeing really good results, it's very hard not to keep on pushing and not to keep on seeing improvements in times and things week on week and month by month. Now, from the strength training research, we know that you can avoid injuries and really prevent overuse injuries if you have a cycle of pushing for 2-3 weeks and then taking an easy week. Pushing for 2-3 weeks, taking an easy week. And what that does is that if you did overreach and stay in that yellow bit for those 2-3 weeks, that 3rd or 4th week that you give the body an easy week just allows it to consolidate your training and recover fully. So you're avoiding that overuse injury kind of tendency, and then you can push again. So that's a really important thing to just go, and I guess that's my overall tip for this is analyze your training. Look at the last 2-3 years of training, where you started, where you've come to. Look at how quickly did you get there. Look at how are you scheduling your races during the year. How many races have you got in that year? Are you allowing enough recovery time if they're quite long races and quite hard races? Because you'll need more recovery time after that. Is there a natural flow for your running, that there's certain parts of the year that you really work everything hard, but then you've got other times in the year where the volume is maybe a little bit higher, but the running is easier. So you're allowing your legs to recover. That is really, really important. Then the other important thing when we think about recovery periods and the body adapting to the training you've done is thinking about stress and sleep specifically as well. Yes, food and things are quite important, but I find runners tend to usually eat enough. But the part that they miss out is the fact that if you're not getting enough sleep, like for instance, say there's a new baby in the house, or you've just started a new job that's freaking you out a little bit and you're lying awake at night. If you're not getting enough sleep, your body's not recovering properly, and you should really think about adapting your training accordingly. So maybe swap long runs for shorter runs, or swap harder runs or harder terrain runs for easier terrain runs or slower runs. Think about that part of it. Also, if you've got a high stress job, running can be a great way of de-stressing, but just think about, are you getting enough recovery time? Should you be changing it that you get your runs in to help with de-stressing, but they're not that hard, that they don't actually add to stress on the body? A run may feel enjoyable, but if it's a hard run, the hormones and chemicals in your body is still the same as stress response. So just think about it, that you're not adding stress from both sides on top of that. Yeah, that's basically the message here. So the big problem, or the biggest training error people make, is that they just do too much volume and too high intensity for too long a period, and then they don't listen to the warning signs. And the warning signs, which I forgot to say, is usually you know that there's a bit of a niggle after a race or after a training session in that hamstring that doesn't feel quite so good. And sometimes you can train through it at the beginning, but it will often niggle you on quite a regular basis. You may even go for more massages and stuff, but it doesn't quite solve it. And my patients, more often than not, have a story where they had a few months of that niggle just building until finally there was a race or a training session where it just pushed it over the edge, and then it's full-blown tendinopathy. So watch out, if you're getting those niggles and they're quite persistent, step back, look at your training of the last few months, look at how many high intensity races, hilly training sessions, hard training sessions, all of those things you've done, and just check, should you be adapting your training to allow those tendons to recover before they become a full-blown problem. Excellent. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. You're also welcome to message me direct. But if you need more help with your injury, always welcome to consult us via video call. Link is in the description of this video. Take care.